Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Speak, Film, and Enter, a podcast where we review and rank movies. I'm Nate.
And I'm Dylan.
And today we are reviewing Broker, the new movie from Japanese director Hirokazu Kore-eda, who most American movie watchers probably have not heard of him. Maybe you have. His most famous movie in the U.S. probably is Shoplifters from 2018, which I believe was nominated for Best International Feature at the Oscars. I could be wrong on that. But one of the biggest directors ever from Japan, and first new movie from him for a couple of years. So kind of for those of us who are into foreign films and like to kind of follow different directors from that part of the world, long anticipated, at least once we heard this was coming out about a year ago.
Yeah.
Dylan, would you like to tell the people what it's about?
Yeah, Broker is about boxes are left out for people to Boxes are left out for people to anonymously drop off their unwanted babies, which is a very simple synopsis, which does not really get into what the movie is actually about. It sounds more like just a fact. That's a weird written one.
Yeah, the original title for this movie was Baby Box.
Okay.
So basically what we get here is these people who run this baby box covertly. A woman leaves a child in there, and then it's just a spot for people to basically abandon their babies. And then these people find homes for them so that they don't get caught up in like the orphanage and kind of the state system.
Yes, and
or just left on the street.
Yeah, and there is a profit incentive there's kind of a market for these babies, couples who either can't or don't want to go through official channels.
Right. So then where the story kind of starts here is that the mom who abandoned the child comes back and says, actually, I don't want to abandon him. And they say kind of, we've already got things moving and in motion, and you already abandoned the kid. Who's to say you won't abandon him again in a week? Like, why shouldn't we just go and find a loving couple to raise this kid instead of you who already abandoned him once? And then what ensues is sort of a road trip movie to go find a home with the mother and the two men to find a home for this baby, with some police kind of hot on their tails as they're operating an illegal operation.
Adoption agency.
Yeah, exactly. And if you've ever seen a Kore-eda movie before, you kind of know, I think, what to expect. If you haven't seen one of his, what he does really well and what a lot of his movies focus on is either like found family themes or just family oddities that might cause strange issues or bring people together in sort of unexpected ways. Like an example, another movie of his that I've seen, Like Father, Like Son, is about two couples who they each have, I think the kid's like 6 or 8, somewhere in that range. They each have a son. And then one day the government shows up and says, hey, we just discovered that we accidentally gave each of you the wrong kid. We swapped these babies in the hospital. So you've been raising each other's kids for the last like 6 to 8 years. And then the rest of the movie is them kind of deciding, like, what do we do about this? Like, we've had this kid for this much time. He's kind of ours, but he's also not. And so it kind of plays out like that. You get something a similar kind of thing in Broker and like Shoplifters, with kind of a found family theme where these people who are brought together under strange circumstances who maybe don't have traditional family units of their own kind of find themselves drawn together.
Yeah, and I definitely picked up on that here with this. And I think that the stronger parts of this movie are definitely, I think, like the character work and kind of the interpersonal relationships, particularly around like our core 4 or 5 characters, right?
Yes.
The main group that we're following on the road trip, let's, find some parents for this kid mission, are definitely like, I think they balance out each other very well. You've got kind of the older man, kind of father to the whole group, Song Hyun, who's played by Song Kang-ho, who you definitely would recognize from Parasite. And then you've got Dong Su, who was also an orphan, and he's kind of, what would you say, early 30s, just kind
Yeah,
of
early mid 30s probably.
early mid 30s, and he still definitely has strong connections to, like, certain orphanages and just kind of that whole world in general. Then you've got Soo Jin, who's the mom, or no, So Young is the mom, and then you've got a really gripping, or not gripping, but just like engaging performance from the kid here.
Yeah,
Sung Soo Im plays Hei Jin, who's one of the kids from the orphanage who basically just like forces his way into the group,
he's
and
a
he's like
stowaway.
along for the ride. Yep, he's over my right shoulder here. If you're watching on YouTube, that's him. Um, and yeah, he was great, and they played off each other really well. And whenever the movie was just focused on them and what was going on in their world, I felt like it was really good. I think some of the things that hold this movie back are maybe just trying to do too much extra stuff on top of what we've already talked about.
Yeah, I think with Kore-eda's movies, they're generally not heavy on plot. Like you kind of get a thing that these
Hmm.
characters get thrown into, and then they just sort of live their lives, and you kind of see how it goes. This adds a lot of sort of almost like peripheral plot elements
Hmm.
as the movie goes on, and it kind of adds more and more layers. And I found them less and less effective as we went along. I mean, we mentioned the two cops already, but then there's a whole connection that one of these characters has to like organized crime that kind of
Hmm.
adds another layer in later. And then it all leads to what I kind of thought was a unsatisfying and unearned ending
I would
because
agree.
there's so much stuff going on. But I totally agree with you. The scenes with just well, five of them, if you count the baby,
Hmm.
but the scenes with kind of this ragtag misfit almost family as they're slowly starting to possibly become
Yeah.
are all really well done, and it's really funny at times and really sweet.
Hmm.
There are a couple scenes when they go to a theme park on a Ferris wheel that are
Really good.
spectacular.
Yeah.
Lots of great location shots with the road trip.
Hmm.
Some cool sets around Korea, South Korea.
Definitely.
Um, so yeah, there's a lot in this movie that I really really like, but
Hmm.
it just keeps adding these layers that I thought took away from what was working. And like you said, kind of tries to add too much, where there's a theme throughout this movie, I think, and you pick up on it, especially with the end, where Kore-eda is trying to go, which is sort of a focus on or drawing the audience's attention to the fact that a lot of our characters are focused on the wrong thing or
Hmm.
for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
They start to think about things that maybe aren't just about the kid or necessarily what's best for the kid, although that's ostensibly what they're all doing.
Hmm.
And sometimes that's played to very good comedic effect. Like when the cops
Yeah.
are working some kind of sting operation and they start focusing on these little details that just really do not matter at all. Like that's
Yeah.
really funny. They get the main group gets stopped by a police officer at one point, and they kind of get into an argument over like who should we pretend we are, and
Yeah.
it and there's a running theme of like the characters kind of losing focus on what matters. And I
Yeah.
definitely think that's where the kind of final third of the movie is trying to go. But because a lot of these elements are introduced late and plot isn't necessarily Koreeda's strength,
Yeah.
I just think it doesn't click together in the way that he intends at the end.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's definitely, if this same movie was to be made, maybe by an American studio, or right, or remade, I think that the ending that you might expect from the very beginning of the movie maybe would be how it turned out. And then it would just
Yeah,
be your characters coming to grips with that being what happened, and we all saw it coming. And I felt like he tried to do something else that kind
which I
of
do applaud.
yeah, he really did. He tried to do something else, but it just felt like the way he got us there, and then like the reveal of it, just felt a little like it just a little unsatisfying, and a little bit like I felt like everything all the whole movie was pieces that were building up to some big like aha moment at the end, whereas instead it didn't feel that way. It felt
Yeah,
like the ending kind of came not out of nowhere, but it just didn't fit. Like, oh, I didn't get the impression that we had been building to this. Like,
Exactly. Yeah. It feels like he just kind of got about 80% done with it and was like, well, I can't have it be the obvious ending. So what
yeah.
else can I do? And it just doesn't really land.
Hmm.
That's not to say that I think, this isn't worth watching, because I do
No.
think the highs of this movie are not the highest of the year, but as high as lots of movies that I love
Hmm.
from
Hmm.
2022. But yeah, it just gets a little kind of fast and loose with the plot there
Hmm.
in the last third, and that doesn't quite work. Do you have anything else, or did you want to get into the stars?
Um, yeah, and then I was just gonna say it's also, it's 2 hours and 9 minutes long, so it's
Yeah.
a bulky movie. And it's just, yeah, like I said, the last 30, 20 minutes. But yeah, we can get to the stars.
All right, we'll be right back. I will go first
All
because
right.
Dylan still needs to update his star rating.
It's done now.
Now it's done. Okay. I'll still go first.
Okay.
I'm giving this movie 3 stars. I think, we talk sometimes about how 3-star movies are either something that's just like kind of solid all the way
Hmm.
through, but nothing special about it, or a
Yeah.
movie that has like, or like kind of a roller coaster, peaks and
Peaks and
valleys kind of
valleys.
movie.
Yeah.
And this is that, where the
Hmm.
highs here are really high and the lows, I don't want to say they're like really low, but they hold it down for sure.
Yeah.
Or drag it down, hold it back, whichever way I should be phrasing that. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's still a good movie. And if you like Kore-eda movies and stuff like this, I still think it's worth watching.
Hmm.
Just, I think, know that, in my opinion, he's not reaching the heights of some of his other work with Broker.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And I also am going to give this 3 stars. We are in complete agreement. Maybe because we did see this together and then we got lunch afterwards and kind of discussed it, and it felt like we
Yeah.
kind of were on the same page from
Yep.
the beginning. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the highs are really great. The scenes on the Ferris wheel are really fantastic. There's definitely some great moments, and like you said, the moments, the low moments, they're not terrible. They don't ruin the whole movie, but I just think that we kind of have this standard for the South Korean or Japanese cinema, especially the last few years. We've tried to go and see the big buzzy movies that come out of that part of the world, and normally we're pretty blown away, and they have a pretty good track record with us. And I think just holding this up to those other ones where they do stick the landing and this one doesn't, just brings it down. Like I could see giving this a 3.5, but it's really just like, because I know the ending and I wasn't really feeling it. Like, I'm not sure if I'm gonna want to watch this again or if it's really gonna stick with me
Yeah.
as time goes on.
The character, I will say, the characters have stuck with me. So this feels like a movie where if I saw that it was on TV, I'd be like, oh, cool. I'll rewatch like this part of it,
Mm-hmm.
but I
Mm-hmm.
don't need to rewatch the entire thing.
Yeah. So, yep, 3 from the both of us
Yeah.
for Broker. And then is it your turn to put a wrap on the show?
It is my turn to put a wrap on the show.
All right, take it away.
Thank you for being born.